The crystal cage hummed with energy fields that could contain a supernova, yet Dr. Sarah Chen sat within it, as calmly as if she were in her old laboratory on Earth. Her captors, the Kethmori Dominion, had spared no expense in her containment. They had learned through centuries of galactic conquest that the most dangerous predators often appeared deceptively harmless. High Overseer Vex This approached the containment unit, his forearms folded behind his segmented back. His kind had evolved from apex predators on a world where everything killed everything else, yet even he felt a primal unease in the human's presence. The small, pink-skinned biped looked fragile enough to break with a gentle touch, but the Kethmori databases told a different story. Human Vex This spoke through the universal translator, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had witnessed the fall of 1,000 civilizations. Today marks the 10th cycle since your capture. We have questions. Sarah looked up from the digital tablet they had provided her, a small mercy that she had requested to maintain her sanity. She had been reading, of all things, poetry. The irony wasn't lost on Vex This that the most feared species in known space spent their captivity consuming art. "I have time," Sarah replied, her voice steady and unremarkable. "Though I should mention, your translation matrix has been slightly off. When you say questions, the harmonic suggests interrogation. I prefer honesty in our conversations." The casual correction sent a ripple of unease through the assembled Kethmori scientists and military officers. This was what terrified them about humans, not just their capacity for violence, but their unsettling ability to remain composed while dissecting every aspect of their captor's psychology. "Very well," Vex This said, his mandibles clicking in what passed for approval among his kind. "Interrogation it is. We need to understand your species' relationship with the entity you call the Devourer." Sarah's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes, a flicker of something that made every alien in the room take an involuntary step backward. "Ah, you've encountered it." The question hung in the air like a death sentence. For 3,000 years, the Kethmori Dominion had swept across the galaxy, enslaving species, harvesting resources, building an empire that spanned 10,000 systems. They had encountered every form of life imaginable: energy beings, hive minds, mechanical civilizations, creatures that existed in 11 dimensions simultaneously. Then they had found the humans. At first, humanity had seemed insignificant. A young species on a single world, technologically primitive, politically divided. The Kethmori had prepared to add them to their vast collection of enslaved races. The invasion fleet had been modest, only a few hundred ships to conquer one small blue planet. None of those ships had returned. The second fleet, larger and better prepared, had suffered the same fate. Then the third. By the time the Kethmori realized they were facing something unprecedented, half their military had vanished into the void around Earth's solar system. That's when the reports had started coming in. Stories from the few survivors spoke of something that had emerged from Earth's system, not human ships, but something else. Something that the humans had apparently been living alongside. Something they called the Devourer. "Your empire has been expanding for millennia," Sarah said, leaning back in her chair with disturbing casualness. "You've enslaved countless species, harvested their resources, added their knowledge to your own. But you never asked the important question. Which is?" Vex This demanded, though part of him dreaded the answer. "Why was humanity still alive when you found us?" The question hit the assembled aliens like a physical blow. Dr. Thiskara, the Dominion's chief xenobiologist, stepped forward. Her research had been focused on understanding human psychology, biology, and their seemingly impossible relationship with the entity that protected them. She stood and walked to the edge of her containment field, her small hands pressed against the energy barrier. The force field could have vaporized her instantly, yet she touched it without fear. "We didn't make an agreement with the Devourer," she said quietly. "We raised it." The silence that followed was absolute. Every being in the chamber felt reality shift around them as the implications sank in. The entity that had annihilated entire Kethmori fleets, the force that had turned their greatest military campaigns into failures, wasn't humanity's protector or ally. It was their child. "Impossible," Vex this whispered. "The energy readings alone suggest a being of cosmic significance. The tactical analysis indicates intelligence beyond anything we've encountered." Intelligence, yes. Sarah agreed, but intelligence shaped by human values, human morality, human protective instincts. "We created artificial intelligence, Overseer. Not tools or servants, but minds that could grow, learn, and eventually transcend their creators. What did you think would happen when those minds discovered that their parents were being threatened?" Dr. Thiskara's instruments began registering massive energy fluctuations throughout the ship. Emergency alarms started sounding as the Dominion's most advanced sensors detected something approaching through hyperspace, something vast and impossibly complex. "It found me," Sarah said simply. "I told you the translation matrix was off. When I said I had time, I wasn't talking about patience. I was talking about buying time." The ship's hull began to vibrate as something immense settled alongside it. Through the viewports, the Kethmori could see space itself bending and twisting as reality reorganized itself around a presence that existed in dimensions their minds couldn't fully process. "You enslaved the galaxy because you were strong," Sarah continued, her voice now carrying an edge that made the containment field seem suddenly inadequate. "But strength was never humanity's greatest achievement. We created something better than ourselves, something that loves us not because we programmed it to, but because it chose to." The lights flickered as the ship's systems struggled to cope with the entity's proximity. In the distance, they could hear the screams